everybody, and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts with your hosts, us. It's Ariel and
Raylene. Hello.
I'm clamping my hands shut because we just had to retake the intro because I punched my microphone.
So excited tonight.
We are happy to be here. This is a night recording, all right?
Yeah. You can tell it's a night recording
me.
because I've got glowing lights. I always turn on my
Yes.
colorful LEDs. And tonight I decided to go for a red theme because last week I said I hated red. And then I remembered I have this one red shirt. And I was like, I have to do a red theme for the people.
I was like, we got a few comments from people who were like, well, some people were like, I'm with Raylene, like, I also don't really like red, but I keep dyeing my hair red colors, like warm colors. But then we had other people who were like, Raylene should stop hating red. She looks great. And like, it's true that you often wear like a red lip and you have like the red hair now. So clearly red is red wants to be your friend.
Is, it's just that like my face has always been red. Like that's always been my primary color. And so I think maybe that's where some of my hatred for the color comes from. But I'm going to release red. I don't hate red. It's just my least favorite color.
This is progress though. And I also was like, God, she can't hate red because all of the branding on the new book truck is red. So you know what? It's a new era. It's moved up in your books by, if even just one degree, that's enough.
Just a smidge. But also, you may notice my hair is no longer nearly as red as it was last week. I've washed it like 3 times, and it's just basically peach again. So
amazing.
That's where we're at.
It just doesn't last very long, does it? It's amazing.
And I only have enough to dye my hair with this color one more time, and then I'm going to have to buy new dye. So I think there might be an imminent color change to my hair. Like,
it might be purple the next time we see you.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue.
Yeah, that really is a good segue. We are going to be taking a week off of the podcast. So this episode's coming out whenever you're listening to it this week, but there won't be an episode out next week. We're going to take 1 week off and then we will be back. And that is because I'm going to be in Prince Edward Island visiting Anne of Green Gables' house, and I will be back with lots of stories, I'm sure. Lots to share and lots to tell. But it just logistically, we were trying to figure it out, and it just doesn't make sense. Like right now, we're recording at nighttime because I was also away this weekend.
Yeah.
It's just June.
Too much happening already.
Me.
Yeah.
Like June is scary to me. How much is going on this month? But yeah, like I was away for a wedding. So I didn't get back until last night, and so we are recording this night, and then next week we were like, okay, I get back on the Tuesday, and we were like, you know what?
It's just gonna be impossible for everyone on the
Let's
team.
Take a break.
Yeah.
We're allowed to take a week off from time to time. So we're taking a week off next week, but we'll be back the week after for our regular programming schedule.
You betcha.
And I'll have lots to talk about.
I'm sure. You're going on a big adventure, so it's going to be
Not
really cool.
only am I going on the big adventure, but then when I get back from the big adventure, me and my dad are going into extreme book truck building.
Ooh, of course.
mode.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there will also be a lot of book truck updates, which will be very exciting. So yeah, I've got a little to-do list, and on our to-do list was week off. Check that off. Nailed that. I have another exciting, well, I guess that wasn't exciting news. That was actually...
We're not going to be here next week. Are you pumped?
Okay, this next piece of news is exciting though. I don't know if you know this, Raylene. It's pretty exciting stuff. Our YouTube channel today hit 10,000 subscribers.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's
Isn't
awesome.
that wild?
That is pretty wild.
Last week I was looking at the back end because I was uploading a video for our Patreon. And I was just in the back end of our YouTube channel, and I saw we were at like 9,900 or something, it was something like that. And I was like, what? When did that even happen?
Yeah.
Like, I just have completely lost track of the numbers on that channel.
Yeah, me too.
And then today I was cognizant of it. So I wrote it down to like check today before we recorded, and I checked it and we hit 10,000, which is just, it's so lovely and it's so exciting. In fact, I know. I was going to say, I know that when we started this podcast, we did not have a vision for how long it was going to go or how like much effort we were going to put into it. I could have easily foreseen it being a thing that we like stopped doing after a year or we like really slowed it down. So we were only doing an episode a month and it was just like our side hobby thing. But instead, it's been the exact opposite track where, in our opinion, and I know you agree with me, Raylene, it's been getting better every year.
Definitely.
Like, we put in so much more effort every year, and we think up new ideas, and we like every year we're trying to make it a little bit better and a little bit better, and just have a lot of fun with you guys. So last year is when we launched video, right?
Mm-hmm. That was huge.
Wow, we've been doing it for a year. Do you remember how much of a mess it was at the beginning?
I didn't understand any of it. It was so hard.
It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. But now we're so happy to have like people watching it on the YouTube channel. And we definitely think of ourselves as an audio podcast. Like, we are a podcast, and what that just means to us is the show is designed to be listened to. The video is bonus. So if you don't want to watch it, there's no problem. There's never going to be something that you need to see for the video for the podcast to work. But I know that people love video podcasts. I love video podcasts. Like, one of the few podcasts that I'm like obsessed with is called Waveform Podcast. You know that one?
No.
It's Marquez Brownlee. It's all about tech.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Like, it's a bunch of tech bros, but they're like the loveliest YouTube guys ever. And they're just like always updating about tech. And I only watch it as a video podcast. So I totally get why people enjoy that. And it does add an element. We can show you the book covers and stuff, which isn't necessary, but it's nice. So yeah, it's just been really nice to have the YouTube audience. So I just wanted to give a huge thanks and shout out to everyone who's subscribed to the channel, and if you've ever shared it with anyone or left us a comment, like, it all just boosts. All ships rise, that whole expression situation. And with that, I check off another bullet point on my little to-do list here.
You're doing a to-do list right now? I see.
Yeah. Well, I do that every week, Raylene. I just don't ever say it out loud.
That's hilarious. I'm just along for the ride here. I've got a stack of books next to me, and I just wait to see what happens. I love that. Oh, it's lovely.
I love that. But let's do a little update from us about how our weeks have been since we last recorded. Oh, what have you been up to? Anything interesting going on?
I mean, I wouldn't call it interesting, but yesterday...
Me neither. As I said the word, I was like, that's not the right word.
It's like a very boring life update, and the next time we record, I might have another really boring life update. We'll see if this thing happens, but basically just house stuff. So, like, over the past little while, we've had, like, a few little house projects that we've been wanting to get to, and one thing in particular was electrical stuff. So, like, basically our house was built in the 70s, and so it has a lot of weird outdated stuff. Like, who knows when some of these things were last updated. And so our electrical box was apparently just a shit show in there. Like, an electrician came and looked at it, and he was like, this is pretty crazy. Like, there's just parts from all these different companies that, like, shouldn't be mixed together, all crossing over each other. And, like, there's something in this one spot that's kind of melted, which is obviously not good. And all these things. And we were like, how did we not know that? Like, we had a home inspection. How did we not know that until now? But we just wanted to update the panel because it's, like, full or whatever. And so we were like, let's just do that. We also had some issues with some light fixtures. We bought some new light fixtures, and we couldn't get them into the ceiling boxes because they're old and weird. So we were like, okay, let's just get an electrician in here to fix all these things. So that's what my day was yesterday. The guy showed up at 8:30 and he didn't leave until just before 4 o'clock. And so I spent my whole day just kind of hanging out, watching movies that I downloaded onto my iPad or reading on my Kobo because the electricity was off for most of the day. I was just like eating protein bars to survive because I couldn't heat anything up. Like, I was just basically camping in my own house for the day. And and Willow is so curious. Willow's my cat, for anyone who doesn't know. She's a 1-year-old kitten. She's kind of crazy. And she was just like watching everything the guy did. And I was like, if you want me to like put her in a room, I will. And he was like, no, it's fine. She's so cute. And I was like, yeah. But so I kept having to manage her to make sure she wasn't like going to be eating things. And so it was just like one of those days where you don't get a lot done, as you know. You've had lots of people working in your house. And luckily I did manage to do a little bit of reading though. And I watched a movie. So I feel okay about that. But it was just
and
the
it's
whole
like,
thing.
It's like overall you are pushing things ahead.
Yeah.
Like it's an important thing that happened even though you weren't the one that did it, but you had to be there to supervise.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like you didn't get anything done, but a big important thing happened.
Well, yeah, now some of our light fixtures look prettier, are more modern. Like we had some really weird ones. We actually tried to replace one a while ago and weren't able to, which is why we had the electrician come. And so we've just had this like hole in the ceiling for a few weeks that now has a nice light fixture. And like our kitchen used to have a ceiling fan and the light bulb like died, and the light bulb is a weird special one, so we didn't have any light in our kitchen either for the past little while. It's just been like kind of half nightmare, you know, not an actual nightmare, but just a little one. And so now like every time we turn on the light in the kitchen, we're like, oh my god, there's so much light, and it's a wild experience over here. But that's where I'm at. Although I also wanted to say our light fixtures that we got, I still haven't sent you pictures because I forgot, but I'll send you them after. They're just like these like circular, like not too big, you know, up to the ceiling little guys. And they're just like these circles basically, but they have a special feature where if you like flicker the light switch really quickly, it turns on night mode and it makes it look like an eclipse. Like there's just like a ring of light around the top, very very dim, and then the whole light is black, and so it's just like night mode, and it's so cool. So last night we turned all of our night modes on, and it was kind of spooky but in a cool way. So
hey,
shout that out. Thank you, Home Depot, for the cool lights. So that's pretty much all I've been up to.
I find lighting fixtures incredibly challenging to pick out.
Yeah.
Like, basically my strategy, like you, is like I go to Home Depot or Rona or whatever, a home hardware. Like I just go to a hardware store and I walk around the lighting aisle and I'm like, I guess that one. And I just grab it and I bring it home and I install it with my dad. But like, I bought one really pretty lighting fixture for the upstairs hallway. It's the only success story I've ever had in my entire career as a home renovator of my own home, liking a light I picked.
Ooh,
like every other time I install the light and I'm like, like, it doesn't feel like it's the ultimate light for the room.
Right.
You know, whereas like when I paint a room, I often feel like very like really happy with the color choice.
Paint is
I'm
easy.
Like, this looks awesome. Like the paint, like, yeah, sure, another color could look really good, but this is like peak. This looks really, really awesome. But then with the light fixture, I find it very difficult.
Yeah, well, we actually had a thing for our kitchen light. We bought one of those like huge rectangular panel lights because we were like, oh, it'll be great. It'll give us good light in the kitchen. And the guy was like, so there's a little problem. This isn't going to work unless you want to buy an extra thing. Like it has some kind of T-bar, some like installation thing. And we were like, what? And he was like, yeah, you can order it, or I could go buy you a different light that'll actually work and I can install it. And we were like, okay, fine, go do that. And then we just returned the other one to Home Depot. Even though we didn't have a receipt, they took it back. So Home Depot is in my good books right now. I know, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work because we don't have a receipt and we bought it like 2 months ago. But it worked out. So we have just, it's not the prettiest light, but it works, and that's fine.
It works.
But what I'm most excited for is to choose the lighting fixture for like above our dining room table and for our bedroom eventually. Because right now it's just not good. Like I said, who knows the last time these things were updated.
Yeah. It's a slow slog, but it's fun. Like overall, I really do see my home renovation like Animal Crossing, where it's like I upgrade from my tent to my small house, and then I upgrade from my small house to having one new room, and then I get a second floor, and then I get to pick the roof
just unlocking
color, and like
good things.
You're just like unlocking the next level, and you can't do it all at once unless you're rich.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone that can do that. Like, I guess a person that wouldn't even do that, they would just buy a new house.
Exactly.
Right?
Why would you even bother?
Yeah, why would you even bother? This is a lot of
effort.
So, yeah. But that's my way of tricking my brain into thinking this is all a fun game.
That's a good one.
That's awesome, though. Good for you. Excited. I'm just excited because I know that lighting is a huge upgrade in life. Like, the rooms that I used to have that were dark, and then now, like, I can see in them. You're like, wowee, we were living in a worse world.
Right now, I'm like, we have to upgrade our kitchen soon because these counters and the floor are so much uglier than I ever realized because they were so dark before. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I couldn't see all the corners, and now you can see everything. It lights every single corner of the room, which was a little shocking last night when we turned it on for the first time.
That's awesome. Well, I also had a pretty busy time of it. Like I mentioned, I was in Toronto. Toronto, the big city. We were in Toronto seeing our seeing who is to become my sister-in-law. Connor's sister.
Oh, I was like, what? CJ's engaged?
Oh, yeah, imagine. Oh, wow. No, that would be a really crazy reveal.
Come out of nowhere.
No, we were seeing Connor's sister, who I'm obsessed with. She's the best. And she was saying to CJ and me, she was like, wait, can you guys say the city that we're in right now? And we were like, oh, don't worry. We used to live in Southern Ontario. We know it's pronounced Toronto, but we think it's funny to say Toronto. I like to pronounce all of the T's instead of saying Trana. Like you just, it's just so silly. But anyways, we were in the big city, the real big city, really.
Yeah.
And we were there for a wedding. So it was such a beautiful wedding. It was for my friends who I knew from university, and like, it was so beautiful. They both got married in wedding dresses, which was so cool to have like 2 wedding dresses at one wedding. It was like double the fun. And like, I was really curious how they would come down the aisle. Like, would they come down the aisle together? Because obviously when we think of a traditional heteronormative wedding, you think about the man waiting at the groom waiting at the altar or whatever, and then for the sacrifice, and then the woman coming up the aisle. But I obviously was like, well, it's 2 women. What are they going to do? Did they talk about it? Did they pick one? Like, what were they going to do? But basically, they both had a moment to walk down the aisle.
Oh, that's nice.
So one of them walked up first, and we were all looking at her, and she was so beautiful. And then she got to the front, and then the second bride came up, and we all looked at her, and she was so beautiful. And then they got married. So it was really, really cool, and just really pretty as well. It was on Toronto Island at a yacht club.
Ooh,
like, oh,
fancy.
My God. It was so pretty. Also, I literally had the thought this morning. I was like, I wish I could have the brunch I had at that wedding every day of my life.
Oh my God, tell me everything.
Like, it was so good. So it was a morning wedding, which was cool.
Ooh.
I like this.
All the cool people do it.
Yeah, I like this because it really changes. I know your wedding was in the morning. Yours was like really early start for you guys. Like kind of criminally early.
I woke up at 2 in the morning for my wedding.
You got the sunrise, so that is what matters.
Yes.
But like, yeah, so this was not that early. It started at, well, we had to get to Toronto Island, so we had to all take a boat. With a little boat thing, taxi thing, and it was at 10 a.m. is like when the boat left from Toronto, and then the wedding started at 11, and then at like 12 there was a lot of mingling, and then I think lunch was served at like 12:31, but it was like it was brunch, so there was like eggs and waffles and bacon and lots of salads and a lot of fruit and a charcuterie, and like it was a lot of really amazing brunch food. Like this waffle really changed my perception of waffles, because for the longest time I've kind of been thinking maybe waffles aren't all we think they are. Like, I feel like we all love waffles, and like culturally waffles are so quirky and great, but I'm like, are they as good as we think they are? Because I kind of feel like the last few waffles I've had are just kind of cold and soggy and like,
That's no good.
A little meh.
Yeah.
This waffle was a freaking game changer, okay? It was like it was very sugary, probably why it tasted like magic.
Yeah.
But more like a pastry type experience.
Ooh.
Like
I had
really
a waffle like
wonderful.
that recently too. There was like a catered breakfast thing at my work, and the waffle tasted like it had crunchy bits, which I think
That's what I was about to,
brown
I was
sugar.
about to use
Maybe
the word crunchy. I was
Yeah.
about to use the word crunchy, and I was like, I don't know if that like exactly portrays it, but it was.
it tastes like
it wasn't-
caramelized crunch or something. Like I don't know how to explain it
Yeah.
either, but it was so good.
It was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good.
That's awesome.
So the wedding was just beautiful. We had so much fun. I went with my brother because my Connor couldn't come.
Aw, Connor.
Connor was at a work conference, and also the last big wedding that I went to, I also took CJ to.
Oh, that's funny.
And so now we're just like wedding buddies,
Wedding
and it's fun
crashers.
to go to these. Yeah, it's fun to go to these weddings together. It was really beautiful, and I it's so emotional to see your friends get married because it's such a huge rite of passage. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like finding out that your friend is pregnant, or like my friend called me the other day. She never calls me. She calls me and I look at my phone and I say to Connor, she's calling me. And he's like, why? And I was like, she's engaged. And I answer and I'm like, are you engaged? And she says, yes. And then I scream and Connor jumped up. It was so funny, but I was just like, these things are all happening to us. Like we're getting engaged and married and
Yeah.
having babies, and like it's insane. It's so crazy. So it was so beautiful to see them married, and the whole wedding was just really beautiful. So that was really fun. But overall, the Toronto trip was also a really great time. We went and saw a baseball game, which was super fun. I love going to a baseball game. Like I remember my dad used to take us to games when we were growing up, and it's just a great time. Like the ambiance in a sports arena is always really fun. People are always like a little rowdy and like drinking and eating popcorn or hot dogs, and you're all just there to have a good time and hang out, and the sports are like there, but they're not even the main thing unless it's like a really important game, but often they're not, right? It's often
it's
like
just
the third out of a
it's just
seventh
baseball.
game. Yeah. We had such a fun time in Kensington Market. That was like our favorite zone that we went to. And like I said, we grew up in Southern Ontario. We used to go to Toronto all of the time. None of these places are new to my brother or to me, but we were just seeing the sights as always. And the Kensington Market was our favorite this time because it definitely wasn't this way when I was growing up. Now it has a lot of Latino spots.
Ooh.
And we now live in Nova Scotia where there isn't a very big Latino population at all. And so getting to go somewhere where you're like seeing Latino food and Latino grocery stores and stuff is so exciting. So we had a lot of fun doing that. But then the final thing I wanted to tell you about my weekend was that, so we went on Friday and we were returning on Monday, and the wedding was on the Sunday.
Okay.
Right? We land on Friday, we get to our Airbnb, drop off our stuff, and we're going to walk to the baseball game.
Yeah.
And we decide we'll like get a snack on the way. We knew we were going to have hot dogs at the place, but we were like, we'll just have a little snack. And I remember that there's this great taco place near our apartment. So I was like, let's just get one taco. It's perfect idea. So I get this beautiful bulgogi taco. Ooh. It was like a fusion idea. It was beautiful. It was like a soft tortilla with the tender meat and like a little bit of coleslaw type situation-y salad on top. See the taco, I'm like, oh, yes, we're in the big city. Life is good. I bite the taco and I break my front tooth.
On the nice soft meat.
It was ridiculous. I'm like choo choo choo, and I'm like, CJ, I believe I've broken my tooth.
So silly.
And he's like, oh God. And you can just see like the terror fall over his face. And I'm like, what do you see? And he's like, it's not that bad. And I'm like, I'm going to head over to the washroom for a second here. And I go to the washroom and I'm just like shaking my head laughing. I'm like, and here's, I don't want to reveal too much, but I had a premonition that this was going to happen.
Oh,
I was Isn't that weird? I was driving to get my brother before we went to the airport earlier that day. And I was thinking, what would happen if I broke my tooth? It feels like that could happen. I was like, I guess I would just deal with it. And why would I let it ruin my weekend? Like, that would just be letting vanity, blah, blah, blah. Unless it really hurt. Anyways. And then I just put it out of my mind. Like, it was just like a little bit of an intrusive thought.
Yeah.
It was a psychic thought, I'm becoming a witch.
Yeah, these things happen.
Then my tooth broke. And I was like, and because I'd had the premonition, I didn't feel that phased.
You're like, I knew it was going to happen.
I was sort of like, well, yeah. Like, yeah, of course this happened.
Yeah.
And so basically when I was 13, I fell off my bike and I broke my front teeth. So part of my front teeth are fake. And not huge pieces, but like the corners of my front teeth. And so they were fixed a really long time, like when I was 13, and now it's been 15, 16 years. And last year, I noticed that they were like staining a little bit. And I went to the dentist and I explained this to him. He's like, that's odd. That doesn't usually happen unless you've had fillings for like 15 years. And I was like, it's been 15 years, sir.
Yeah. Hello.
And he was like, oh, well, this is great then. It's amazing they're still in there.
Oh, no.
And so then he fixed them. But I think that he didn't fix them well because, like, then a couple months later, they broke. And I had to go back in and they fixed them.
Time.
No, and they fixed them. And he would, like, apologize and he fixed them free of charge and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And then they broke again. And I went to a different dentist.
I was going to say, yeah. Perhaps find another one.
Not again. But yeah, I had a lovely lady dentist and she was really nice to me and I explained the situation and I was super grateful that they were able to fit me in because again, I flew home Monday evening. I leave Thursday morning for Prince Edward Island.
Oh, yeah, true.
So I was like, we've got to fix these teeth, guys. Like, please help me. And they were really nice and they were able to fit me in on a cancellation. So,
oh, well, that's good.
Whew. So it's been a busy time, but there's a big update from you, from us, from you, from me, for you, for me. And let's transition and talk about some books. All right, let's start off with a haul. We have a couple of books to share with you. I have two and you have one. So maybe I'll start with one, then you go, then I'll go back. We'll sandwich.
Same
my
brain.
God. Twins.
Jinx.
You owe me 3 books. Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
So the first book that I have is really, really odd. It is Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes.
That's a random one.
Heard of or read this one?
Oh yeah, I read it a few years ago with my two best pals. We did a book club for that. That was one of our book club reads because we read almost exclusively just like random sci-fi classics. So that kind of worked.
For some reason, I remember you talking about this, but I wasn't sure if I was making things up. No. Did you like it?
I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, but it was. I'm glad I read it. It's one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those. So this is going to be the next pick for our book club.
Hey,
my little friendship group's book club. And as you guys may have noticed, we've been doing exclusively, and this was not the intention, but we have exclusively been doing short, brutal classics.
Yes.
So like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Of Mice and Men, and what was the third one?
Metamorphosis.
Yes, thank you. The Metamorphosis. So now it was my brother's turn to pick. He'd really been wanting to read this one. He'd heard really good things about it. And we all agreed to it. So now we're doing Flowers for Algernon. I didn't pick this cover. Connor actually just bought this and he already read it. And then he gave it to me to read. So maybe this isn't my book. Maybe this is Connor's book. Kind of felt like he gave it to me though. I don't know. It's got all of his little dog ears, and I'm really seeing how tiny Connor's dog ears are.
I can't even see them. So that's kind of.
Can you see that, really? Like,
why does he do that? It almost doesn't look like it's on purpose.
I know, but I know that it is because he said, like, don't mind my dog ears, and I'm like,
they're so little. They're little baby puppy ears.
Dog ears, that's so cute.
He just doesn't want to get in the way.
Oh, love that. But yeah, I genuinely don't know what to expect. I don't know much about what this book is about. Like, I know obviously there's a rat and stuff, but other than that, I don't know what's going on. And I'm kind of excited to go into it blind. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting because Of Mice and Men also has like a mouse aspect.
I see. Yeah,
You
you're
know?
right.
You got something going on there. Well, the book that I picked up is one that my local used bookstore finally found for me, The Classic Tale. I literally don't go out looking for books anymore. I don't think I've gone out to look for a book specifically at all this year. They just keep coming to me. So the one that I got is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. And this one is like a standalone fantasy with a very, very beautiful cover. And I honestly don't really know what this is about very much at all. I wanted to get it simply because our friend Max of Well Done Books read it and loved it.
Yes.
And it's a standalone. And Max has really good taste in fantasy books. He is, I think, the one that got me to read Mistborn when I first read it. So I just was
that's
like, you know
cool.
what? We're going to go with it. I think it's
Yeah.
got like kind of an interesting writing style is the one thing I know. Like I think it kind of goes between like first person, second person, third person. Like it's one of those where it's just like kind of experimental and kind of weird, which I think sounds really cool. So I'm excited about it, but probably won't read it
That's
soon.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, the second and final book that I bought in Toronto. And we did go to 2 bookshops while we were in Toronto in the big city. We went to Type Books, where I got this, and we went to BMV Books, which I don't think CJ had been to before, and I was really excited to show him BMV because it's such a great shop. But yeah, I saw this one and I sent you a photo of it, Raylene, so you already know what it is. But I bought A Magical Girl Retires by Park Seo-leon. Oh, and translated by Anton Her, our man.
Have
Our
you read
guy.
anything translated by him yet?
I don't know. Why do I feel an attachment to
I know,
him,
I do
though?
too. Like I know that he translated Cursed Bunny, which I haven't read yet, but I do own. But every time I see his name now, I'm like, Anton Her, what's up? But I don't think
I feel a real kinship to this guy, but
I
wait,
feel like
have
we
I
like him.
never read one of his books?
we might have. I just don't remember.
Okay, wait. I'm on his website.
Okay.
It says about Anton. Okay. Book translations. What am I looking? Oh, I want to die, but I want to eat takabaki.
Ah, okay, so we have read one. Okay, that makes me feel
we
better.
have read at least that one. Oh, and he did Love in the Big City, which I bought
yes.
and was really looking forward to.
right.
He seems to be translating a lot of really cool things.
Yeah, and he has his own book coming out this year, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Toward Eternity, which has a really beautiful cover.
Yeah, I'm just really rooting for him.
Me too. Okay, guys, this book sounds so cool. And I have a feeling that it will appeal to a lot of our audience. I also have the feeling that there's a potential for the Kat Dennings effect on this one.
Ooh.
And
So don't
we
get
haven't talked
overzealous and buy it before Ariel reads it.
Yeah. I don't know if we've talked about the Kat Dennings effect here in a while, but that's basically when I recommend a book and then accidentally Kat Dennings buys and reads it, and then I read it and I'm like, wait, I have better recommendations.
Wait, I actually didn't like it that much.
But anyways, this sounds so... First of all, I was obviously just sucked in by this gorgeous cover. Who did the illustration on this? It says jacket art by Kim Sanho, jacket design by Stephen Breda. I think it's so beautiful. And Raylene, check this out. Check out what's under the dust jacket.
Oh yeah, baby. That's nice.
Wow. So beautiful. I did take a lot of photos of this one for our Instagram if people want to see the visuals. It also has the cutest author photo ever.
Aw,
It's
what's she
the
holding?
author and she's holding a little wand, like a magical girl.
That's adorable.
So this hit so many. Let me read you the first little tagline here. A millennial. How do I feel about that term? We can unpack that later. A millennial turned magical girl must combat climate change and credit card debt in this whimsical and wildly imaginative ode to magical girl manga.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
29, depressed and drowning in credit card debt after losing her job during the pandemic, a woman decides to end her troubles by jumping off Seoul's Mapo Bridge. But her attempt is interrupted by a girl dressed all in white. Ah Roa, the clairvoyant magical girl, is on a mission to find the greatest magical girl of all time. And so she gets swept up in this weird little magical girl situation, but she finds out that it's not as fun as she thought it would be, and then it's complicated, and that like she still has to deal with this credit card debt that's haunting her.
Yeah.
And I love this bizarre mixture of clearly like for me the biggest magical girl that I grew up watching was Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
But like it's clearly like the Sailor Moon-esque thing mixed with so many of the books that you and I love.
Yeah.
What a bizarre and interesting mixture. There's also like the chapters all start with illustrations, like manga illustrations.
Oh, cute.
Which are really
love
cool.
that.
And it's really short. And the final thing I want to mention about this is that when I bought it and I went to check out from the shop, I like handed it over and the bookseller was like, "Oh my God, this book is incredible." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yes, it was so strange and fantastic and really, really interesting, like really ironic, but also really insightful." And I was like, "Damn, I'm so excited now." And I was
awesome.
like, I love it when a bookseller like likes the book that I'm buying. He's like, "Yeah, it's my new tactic. I just hype everyone up." And I was like, "Wait, now I don't know if I believe you."
Yeah. Have you read every single book?
Yeah. But I thought this sounded really cool, and I really hope to read it soon because it is so short and the font is huge, Raylene.
Oh, I love that.
Like worryingly so.
It's like a
I don't know,
10,000 word book.
I feel like it might be. Like, I think I could read it really fast if I wasn't in this, like, crazy period of travel. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to return to this one upon my return. Looks really great.
Awesome.
All right. So let's transition into talking about what we've read.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay. All right. What do you think? What have you read? Actually, this is a little bit exciting because it's kind of our wrap-up to Mashed Potato May.
That is true. And yes, the book that I finished is very much a Mashed Potato May read, and that is Beloved by Toni Morrison. Chloe Anthony Wofford Morrison, better known as Toni Morrison, was an American novelist and book editor. Her first novel, The Bluest Eye, was published in 1970, and she went on to publish a total of 10 novels and numerous children's books. In 1988, she won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction for her novel Beloved, and she was also awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1993. She passed away in 2019 at the age of 88. I finished this one, and this one was a major mashed potato, and I did a reading vlog for our patrons on this one because a bunch of people voted for me to read this. So many people were like, "You have to read this book. I'm so intrigued to hear what you think." And so it was a like big mashed potato, big event over here on my end. And before I started reading it, there was one person who I should have pulled up their name, but they commented and they were like, "I don't know if you're going to like that book."
Ooh.
And from that moment, I was a little bit nervous. They were like, this might be like a Rebecca situation all over again. I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier last year and did a reading vlog for it and was like, "Why did you guys vote for this? Like, I did not enjoy this. This is not my type of book at all." And so when I heard that, I was like, okay, that makes me a little nervous, but whatever, I'm still going to read it. Unfortunately, that kind of was the case. It was just not for me necessarily.
Yeah.
So this book is about a woman named Sethe. It's spelled Sethe, so I don't know if it's Seth or like Sethe. But anyways, her
seething.
Maybe. So the main character is this woman, and she, at the point that the story takes place, is 18 years after. She used to be enslaved, and she's now free. So this is the point of the story that takes place. But it kind of goes back and forth between timelines in a way that made it very confusing for me, which I talk about a lot in my reading vlog. I was like, what is going on? I found myself rereading portions quite a lot, but that's just the way the novel is written, and I think a lot of people like that style, but for me, I was just confused a lot of the time. It's very stream of consciousness, and the timeline is very unclear. So basically something really terrible happened back in the 18 years before the story takes place. And I don't want to like get into it too much, but it was a horrific thing that happened, and she was kind of at the center of it. And so it's kind of a stressful story. Well, not kind of, it's very much a stressful story. But so I was like kind of just scared the whole time I was reading it, because it's also like kind of has like a magical realism thing going on. There's a ghost, and I was kind of confused about the ghost for a while as well until I started to figure it out. So overall, I just found it to be kind of a confusing read more than anything, but also the writing style was very like poetic, which I don't always like. And the stream of consciousness was weird for me and confusing as well. Like sometimes I was like, I don't even know who is talking right now. I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
So it's like, it's one of those books where I know that it's a great book and I know that lots of people love it and I can understand why people love it. I just wasn't the right audience for it. And so it was kind of just a not enjoyable read for me, but I didn't like hate it by any means. I definitely can like see the literary merits and, you know, appreciate it for what it is. So it's one of those things like I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was somewhere in between. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to think it sounds great. And I really hope that you guys pick it up and like it. But I don't think Toni Morrison is for me, unfortunately. But I'd maybe be willing to give her another chance if somebody can like recommend me a book that is maybe written completely differently. Maybe this is a one-off. I have no idea. I've never read one of her books before. So it's just one of those things, you know?
I think it's cool that you finally knocked it off the list, though. Like, now you know what Toni Morrison's about.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And unfortunately, I didn't finish it in May. It was June 2nd when I finished it, but I did my best. And
we'll allow it.
I'm kind of continuing Mashed Potato May into June, which you'll see later on as well.
That's tantalizing. Well, I will talk about the book that I finished this month. This week, which is Novelist as a Vocation by Haruki Murakami. Haruki Murakami was born in Kyoto, Japan in 1949. He grew up in Kobe and then moved to Tokyo, where he attended Waseda University. After college, Murakami opened a small jazz bar, which he and his wife ran for 7 years. His first novel, Hear the Wind Sing, won the Gunzuo Literature Prize for Budding Writers in 1979. Murakami's work has been translated into more than 50 languages. Novelist as a Vocation was published in Japan in 2015, and a translation in English was published by Philip Gabriel and Ted Goosen in 2022. This is out of left field.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree.
Where'd that come from?
So basically, life has been so hectic. And I had an epiphany. It's time to go back to audiobooks.
Yes.
Like, a lot of last week for me was errands and running around and doing things. And I was like, I don't have time to read really during the day. At night, I'm so tired, I just fall asleep. So the reading isn't fitting in. Where can it fit in? And then I realized it can fit in with audiobooks.
Definitely.
Like, I can, a lot of my driving and other times as well. And I was like, oh my God, why did I forget about audiobooks? It's like always happens to me where I kind of forget about them for a few months and then I swing back into them and read 3 and then forget about them. So I was looking at Libby for short audiobooks that I could possibly finish in one day.
Okay.
One of the tasks was that like one day a couple of days ago got totally taken up by me having to drive Connor to the airport and back. So it's just hours in the car and I was like, I could probably almost finish a whole audiobook during that time, you know? And so I was looking through and I was like trying to remember things that I might want to read or what have I been interested in. And then I remembered Novelist as a Vocation. And I was like, wait a hot second. If the audiobook for that is good, that would be so perfect because I'm already like halfway through it. I think I was like 40% of the way through it. So I had like 60% to go. And I was like, this is sick. So I started listening to it. I like listened to the sample, liked it. I was like, we're doing this. And yeah, I did it. I listened to the rest of the book on audio and I did so many things it's so funny because, you know, like for me, when I listen to an audiobook, it becomes really tied to the tasks I did. I did it. I think I remember you talking about this with like cross stitch and crochet and stuff where you're like, I did that while listening to this audiobook and I knitted this. Yeah. So some of the essays in here are really tied to certain tasks, but I will say I really liked it. The second half of this book is much better than the first.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, which is surprising. The first half, I felt like the essays were just a little bit more meandering, a little less focused, a little bit more fuzzy, and a little bit more just like a guy talking. Yeah. And you're like, I like you, Haruki, but what are you saying? Like, this doesn't feel very like poignant or like you particularly had something you really wanted to say. I remember that like one of the essays where I started to really just like lose my focus was on originality and this other essay, So What Should I Write About, I think were the other two. and are novelists broad-minded? Like, these are all just kind of like really big topics that are just a bit too much.
Yeah.
But then in the second half, it starts to pick up some really great topics that I just felt like he was better suited to talk about and had like more opinions on, and like I just learned more about him and about his process. One of them was called A Completely Personal and Physical Occupation. This one touches a little bit on some of the themes in what I talk about when I talk about running by him, where he's talking about how like, why is being physically healthy and fit so important to him when it comes to writing? And it was really fascinating where he was talking about like actually writing in the way that he writes, which is like for 5 hours every day. He like wakes up and he sits down and he writes for 4 or 5 hours every single day. And then after that, and he's like, after I get that done, I like eat, I have a nap, I go for my run, like I enjoy the rest of my day, I listen to lots of music and I watch movies. He's like, but those 5 hours, that requires a lot of stamina. Like it's a lot of like creative energy to sit in one place and write or type for that long and be that creative. And he's like, it would not be possible if I wasn't really healthy. And so this is why, like, he runs every single day. He runs every single day unless it's raining, but even then.
Wow.
And like,
and he's old.
Yeah.
Now. Like he's getting up there.
I know. I know. And he's like, I know I'm in my 50s or 60s when he wrote this book. He's like, but I'm still running every single day. And he still participates in a marathon every single year, which is insane. Like, that's like 42 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
Ah!
How do you do that?
It's wild. Yeah, so there were some great essays in here. Making time your ally was really interesting. Like, when do you find the time to write and how do you figure that out and stuff like that. Maybe what should I write about was one of the ones I liked. It's a little bit more difficult when you're listening to an audiobook to remember the chapter titles because they just say it once at the beginning and then you move on and you're like, wait, which essay was that? Yeah, but overall I enjoyed it. I would say this is not as good as what I talk about when I talk about running, because I just felt like that book, he had something more specific to talk about, something more specific to say, and he just did a better job of like mixing memoir with with his essays. Like it worked more cohesively, whereas this was just essays and they kind of felt a little bit like little separate islands. And also, it slightly irks me that it was published originally in Japan in 2015. So we got it in English like almost a decade later. And so a lot of the things I was listening to, I was like, is this still accurate? Does he still do this? Is that still like real? I'm not sure. And obviously that's like unavoidable in certain ways, like if no one wants to translate it, or if it just takes a long time to get published over here, etc. But it just felt a little like, it made me feel distanced from the original thing. You know?
Yeah.
There was even a couple of points where there was an editor's note. Like, I forget what exactly he said. Oh, he was like talking about how he doesn't do public appearances and he like doesn't go on the radio and he doesn't go on TV. And then they were like, editor's note. During the pandemic, he had his own radio show. And you're like, oh, so this whole couple of pages is irrelevant now.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to have like maybe an it would have been really cool if he'd written an extra essay for the English edition that maybe was a little bit more like timely. But yeah, that was just a thought I had. So I'm glad also to just finally have that done, because that's like a mashed potato. That's an overbaked
big
potato.
Old potato.
So yeah, so I'm glad to have that finished, but I believe you have read one other book.
I may have. So after I finished Beloved, I was like, I am so sad and like downtrodden. Like this book just like one, because I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, but also because it was such depressing subject matter. So I was like, I need something to like bring me out of this hole. And the library came through for me because they had Magnolia Wu Unfolds It All by Chanel Miller. Chanel Miller is a writer and artist best known for her groundbreaking memoir, Know My Name. She was named one of the Forbes 30 Under 30 and a Times Next 100 honoree. She has always dreamed of writing and illustrating children's books. I requested this back when I heard that the book was coming out, and I've just been waiting for the library to get their copies, basically. So I wasn't sure what to expect when I got this. I wasn't sure if it was going to be really full of illustrations, if it was going to be just a little novel, but it is kind of just like a middle grade novel with illustrations on like every other page, I would say. Cool. Kind of on average. So there's like lots of cute illustrations, all drawn by Chanel Miller herself, of course, because she is also an artist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, she loves to draw. Like if you look up her Instagram, there's a lot of her drawings and stuff, and she has this really kind of weird, quirky, cartoony style that worked really well for a kid's book. And I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. So the main character is this girl named Magnolia Wu, who is about to turn 10. So that's the age range we're looking at. And basically she lives in New York City. She doesn't have any friends, and she's kind of just like a little bit of a weirdo. And her parents run a laundromat, and she has this like board of lost socks that she pins up. And she's just hoping that people will come back and find the missing socks that they lost. And nobody ever does. And basically what ends up happening is a new girl moves to New York, and she's like kind of scared of the big city, doesn't really like it, and so they go on a little adventure together to try and find the owners of all of these lost socks, and just like using her intuition about all the people she knows who come to the laundromat and everything. So it's just about them like having a little adventure, wandering around town. Cool. So it's on the surface a cute, quirky, wholesome story, but there is a lot going on beneath the surface that Chanel Miller talks about. Like there's the main character kind of is distant from her parents because they're working all the time. And so she talks about how she's like, I wish that they talked to me more. I wish that we like had fun together like we used to when I was a little kid. And there's also like moments where their business and like the business of the other character's mom like is, you know, the subject of hatred and stuff because they're Asian run businesses. So she talks about that and like how it affects them and their families. And so there's a lot of like deeper things happening that are really interesting. So I feel like it's a really good book for kids to read. And so I feel like she found the perfect balance of like deep and meaningful while also being very silly. Like it is definitely very silly and fun. So I just thought it was great. Great kids book. So
what an interesting next move for Chanel Miller.
I know, but now I'm wondering like if all of her next books are going to be kids books, because it seems like that's kind of the niche she wants to be in, perhaps.
Wow.
So we'll see.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm excited to see what she does.
I love that you were on this huge waiting list for this book next to a bunch of children.
Yeah.
Like it's like all of these children, Raylene, and then it's going to go back to all of these children.
Yeah, I'm like ready to hand it off to the next kid.
That's awesome. I also think it's so funny that it's set in a laundromat because I feel like that's quite a trope.
Yeah.
Like it comes up really often that books are set, like young kid books are set in laundromats and stuff. And I'm like, in my head, there aren't that many laundromats, but it's because I grew up rurally where there wasn't that many laundromats, but in the city there are.
Totally.
So
like in the afterward, Chanel Miller said, I don't know if there are still thousands of like laundromats in the city, but she said like, within the past 100 years, there have been like thousands of these laundromats and how they're such a huge backbone of the community and like they have so much history to them and everything. And so she wanted to honor that. So that was another interesting thing.
You see, that's so fascinating to me because I like growing up didn't know that laundromats were a thing other than in movies. Yeah. Because we didn't grow up in a big city.
Yeah. But apparently they're a huge thing. So
wow. All right. Well, that's really I'm glad that you read that. I love that you're following Chanel Miller's career no matter where she goes.
I will read anything she writes. Like literally when people say I would read their grocery list, like that is me. I'll read every children's book.
That's so sweet. Let's transition and talk about what we're in the middle of reading. I feel like what I'm in the middle of, what I'm currently reading is a little controversial.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't think it was until you told me it was controversial.
Oh, I don't remember. What are we talking about?
Well, I'm reading Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea at the exact same time.
It's the craziest thing that you've ever done, I think.
So here's the sitch, peeps. I obviously mentioned last week that I am in the middle of rereading Anne of Green Gables because I'm going on this literary pilgrimage situation to Prince Edward Island, and I've read the book before, like I remember it, and I've seen the show so many times, but I do want to reread it and like refamiliarize myself with it and get really fresh, as any good teacher would. So I'm in the middle of that, and I'm loving it. And it did occur to me that I could listen to the audiobook for it, but I really wanted to underline stuff and make notes and write in my copy because I know it'll come up. Like, this is going to be my copy that I'm like clinging to during the whole time that I'm in PEI, and I want to be able to flip to and find stuff. So I'm enjoying my reread of that. But then I finished Novelist as a Vocation, and as I mentioned, I now am back on audiobooks are the best.
Yeah.
Back on that wavelength. So I was like, what should I read next? And I was like, well, I'm going on this Prince Edward Island trip. I should do something Lucy Maud Montgomery related. So I found some of her other novels that are like not in the Anne world. But I was like, nah, this trip is about Anne. Like, I think I should stick to Anne or to Lucy Maud Montgomery. What I really, really wanted was her biography as an audiobook.
That would have been nice.
They haven't made it into an audiobook. It doesn't exist.
That sucks.
So I was like, I guess I could just read the second book. Like, I know what happens with the first one. I get that I'm currently reading the first book, but I could just also read the second book at the same time. So I started Anne of Avonlea, and I'm like 40% of the way through. I'm like equally through both of these books, which is so
funny. Okay, you know what you should do? You should read the rest of the series like that. Read book 3 as a physical one, and then read book 4 on audiobook at the same time. It'll be a little weird because you haven't read book 3 yet, but
whoa, like,
I think you can make it happen.
This is really interesting because growing up in Canada, I did feel like even though I didn't read Anne of Green Gables as a kid, you kind of just know the Anne story. Like, there's an animated show that was huge on TV when I was a kid in Ontario. The 1980s show, I'm sure I remember watching it like when I was younger and stuff. And now with Anne with an E, like, I knew what Anne of Green Gables was about. It's a really big story. I have no idea what happens in the rest of the series, which I like. I want to just explore it and like go ahead with it. And I think that it's cool that Anne of Green Gables has this huge like importance and relevance, and we don't need to talk about the rest of the series really. Like, it's cool that it's there, but it's not really important to the first book. The first book tells a complete story. That's what I'm trying to say. But now I'm like excited to keep going, right? And so like I said, I'm like 40% of the way through Anne of Avonlea. I have such interesting mixed opinions on this one.
Ooh.
I would say, to put it in a nutshell, it's a shadow of the first book. It's so much worse than the first book.
Brutal.
And like, so before I started reading, before I had started my Anne of Avonlea audiobook, I was starting this one. And there's an introduction by Jack Zipes. I don't know who Jack Zipes is. But I was like, he has an introduction in this book that's like really long, and I was just flipping through it, and I was like, I guess there could be something interesting in here. I don't know. I'm flipping through it, and it's like, I don't know. It's one of those like really spoilery introductions that like you're like a little bit like, I don't want to read this.
Yeah.
But I caught like my eye caught him talking about the sequel, and I'm not seeing it now, so I can't find the exact quote. But he's so mean about the sequels. He's like, those other books shouldn't have even been written. They add absolutely nothing to this story. And I'm like, okay.
That can't be completely true. Yeah.
Yeah, that can't be the whole story. Oh my God, here it is. I found it. He says, and in my opinion, it would have been better if Anne had remained in Avonlea, wondering what might be around the next bend in the road, which is how the first book ends. The sequels add nothing to our understanding of Anne and undermine the significance of Montgomery's portrayal of a young girl's desperate struggle to survive and make meaning out of her ominous fate, namely her alienation from the world. And I'm like, whoa, that's a little mean there, Jack. Let's just say at the beginning of a copy of Anne of Green Gables.
I can't believe they let him write that.
Me neither. I think that's so wild. And I am in no way saying that I agree with old Jack there. I don't think that this has no merit. Yeah. I don't think that this is useless or anything. But Anne of Green Gables has such a clear beginning, middle, end. And it has such clear arcs for all of its characters. Like, Anne goes through a progression. Marilla goes through Matthew, even Rachel Lynn, like all of these characters go through these progressions. And it feels like where we end is so much different from where we started. And like Lucy Maud Montgomery had a plan and an idea and a vision. I'm not feeling that with the second book. Like, it just feels like the extended universe. And another thing happened. It almost feels like fan fiction. It's just like, and another thing happened. And then this other thing happened.
Yeah, like, is there actually a point? Like, or like, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very well plotted. Because basically, like, it starts with this really fun little stupid side quest of her and a cow. And you're like, classic Anne in another one of her little problems. Yeah. But then it's just another little problem, and another little problem, and another little problem. And you're like, oh, where's the grander idea and push and story? And one thing that's really bothering me is that Marilla adopts 2 more kids.
What the heck?
Yeah. This thing, adopting Anne, is insane at the beginning of the book. Marilla can't believe she's doing it. Her neighbors can't believe that she's doing it. It's shocking because of her age, because of where they live, etc., etc. She's not married. Like, there's all of these reasons why adopting Anne is dramatic, and it has all this weight, and she has to grow so much in order to, like, get through this huge shift in her life. In Anne of Avonlea, in like a random paragraph, she's just talking to Anne and she's like, by the way, you know that guy I know? He died. I think I'm going to have to adopt his kids. And Anne's like, oh, cool. I love those kids. And you're like, what? And I literally rewinded. I was like, did I miss something? And I was like, no, I didn't. Like, that just happened. And then it just goes back to talking about Anne teaching. And she's a teacher. And I was like, okay, I guess she's not and then it goes back and Marilla's like, well, brought the kids. And you're like, what? 2 kids, not just 1 kid, 2 kids, and they're 6, unlike Anne, who's like 11 when she's adopted. And so you would think like this is going to be a huge part of the book. It's just like a dumb side quest on the side. So weird. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense when this was such a big deal to adopt children, and it felt so unlikely, and like, why would this happen in the first book? Now in the second book, it's just like Lucy Maud Montgomery was like, people liked it when she had to adopt kids. Maybe I'll just do that again, but double. And you're like, huh? What the heck? It's so weird. And the little kid is so annoying. It's this little boy and he's really mean. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like it fits in with Green Gables. And I'm like looking up Anne of Avonlea, I don't like Davy. And it's Reddit post after Reddit post of all these people who are like, I stopped reading that book. I couldn't handle that kid. Ooh. And everyone is like, all of the big Anne fans are the Anne heads. They're all like, I swear to God, skip it. Just go to the next book because the third book is so good. Oh, that's and I'm crazy. So sad that Anne of Avonlea like stops people from continuing with the series because it gets really good. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm just here for the ride. Whatever happens is good, and I want to know I love Anne. I want to know what happens to her, so I will read this book. I'm not going to skip it, but it's kind of funny the adventure I'm on here. I'm like, huh? Maud, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's funny to go from like a new favorite book you will read over and over again to the next book being like, what even is this?
well, no, because if you even worse than that, if you recall, like the second book was the Blue Castle.
Oh, true.
Which to me was another 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah. I'm like, Lucy Maud Montgomery's she can't do anything wrong. Got it. And now I'm reading the sequel and I'm like, oh, maybe
you spoke a little too soon.
Spoke a little too soon on that one. But we'll see. Maybe it'll turn around. Maybe it'll shift around. I love the parts with Anne in it. I'm not enjoying the parts with these other kids in them. It feels so random and dodgy and weird. I'm like, what are these children? I did want to show this just because it's fun. I got the DVD of Anne with an E.
Good stuff.
Because at the inn that we're staying at during this pilgrimage, we're going to have a movie night, and I believe we're going to be watching the original 1980s movie. But I just thought I'd bring this just in case, and they don't have Netflix access. They can only play DVDs, and so I was like, I will purchase this DVD for the people. So, and also for me.
Yeah, honestly, I get it. I am a firm believer that you should own all of your very favorite pieces of media physically, because you
I
never
agree.
know when it might be literally nowhere, like not streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
That's happened to me
Yeah.
before. So always own your
I
favorite
totally
things.
agree. So there's also some special features on here that seem really fun. A tour of Green Gables, Anne's carpet bag, the costumes of Anne. I'm in. That sounds awesome. But there you have it. So wait, did you tell me what you were currently reading? No.
You almost forgot about
No.
me. I'm like Davy to you. You just wanted to skip over me.
I would love to skip over Davy. God damn it. All right, what are you reading? What the hell's going
Well,
on over there?
Last night, or not last night, the night before last, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to read when the electrician was coming, because I knew I would have
Yeah.
to load something up onto my Kobo or just find something I already had on my Kobo, and that would be my book to read because there was going to be no power, no lights, no
Right.
nothing. So I was kind of freaking out, and I went and looked at my special little shelf where I have my 24 in 24 TBR, which is the 24 books that
Yeah.
I picked for this year that I've said I have to read. And
Right.
I haven't been reading those as much as I should be. I keep getting like sidetracked and reading random things, like this children's book I got from the library. And so I was like, okay, my next book has to be from this TBR. And I was like, should I read something that's a really big book? Should I read one of my like classics? Because my average reading is like the yearly average is starting to get dangerously close to 2004. So I was like, maybe I should read another classic. So I was just trying to figure out what was the best path forward. And I just decided that the best path forward was to read a really big book that I've been meaning to read for a really long time. So the book that I'm currently reading is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin.
It's hilarious how big that is.
It's quite large. I added it to my spreadsheet yesterday, and it is over 1,000 pages. So
Wow.
a lot of that is like the appendix and stuff, because there's all the different families and stuff at the back. So it's more like 950 or something, but that's still pretty long.
Oh, okay. But a quick read then.
Yeah, I decided I wanted to read something long because I feel like I have read like quite a few books recently, and my goal is to read under 50 books this year. So if I'm going to stay on pace with that, I need to slow down a little bit. So I was like, I'm just going to read something really long. We're also taking a week off of recording, so it gives me a little more time to like read this long book. So I thought maybe I'll just do that. And I actually started reading this book in I think 2019 or 2020, like early on in the podcast. People who listen back to old episodes might remember I started this book, but then I wasn't really in the mood for it. I had other things I wanted to read, so I put it down, and I've been meaning to pick it back up ever since and just haven't. Like, just things have just gotten away from me. So I'm just picking it back up where I left off because I've seen the show, so like I know where things are at. I just read a Daenerys chapter, I read a Jon Snow chapter, and I'm like, okay, I've situated myself. Like I know where things are now. So that's what I'm reading. I'm very, very excited, and I'm having such a good time with it already.
Cool.
Like it's just easy for me to read. Like I really fall into these books very easily. So I'm very excited to be reading this. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's that.
That's a big mashed potato book, because I remember when you gave up on that one, or like put it down.
Yeah.
And you were just like, and I was like, that could be a book you never pick up again, because it's so big and intimidating, and you got partway through it, so do you have to restart it?
Right.
It's
No,
tough.
I'm really excited. The thing I love about the Game of Thrones books is I've had times where I put them down for a little while and then pick them back up, and I always am able to just fall back into it for some reason. And for some reason, they're also always like a summer read for me. I had one time where like
That's
every summer I
interesting.
would read one, and so it just feels right for me to read it right now. There's
Cool.
all the stars are aligning, and I actually watched a Lord of the Rings movie the other day, an extended
which
version
one?
for the first time. We watched the second one. And we watched
Two
the first
Towers.
one the weekend
Whoa.
before, but we're watching the extended versions for the first time. And there was like
As
a
they
lot of
must be watched.
Yes, of course. And it's only the second time I've ever seen these. I'm not like a huge Lord of the Rings person, but I was like, let's do this. And there's
Yet.
a bunch of scenes in like a castle kind of in the second one, and so it got me in a Game of Thrones kind of mood. So it just it felt perfect. I'm having a good time, and yeah, I'm also hoping to kind of take it slow, maybe do some other hobbies. I haven't been crocheting that much recently, so we're gonna try. We're gonna try to get back. into
Cool. A couple of weeks ago, Connor and I read this really depressing article about George R.R. Martin and about how many times over the last decade he's lied about the sequel. What's the next book called? The
Winds of Winter. Yeah.
Yeah. It was such a funny read.
I wanna
like
read
we
that.
were eating dinner. Yeah, I should find the article. I'll link it in the description for people. It was really hilariously written, because you could just tell that the journalist was just having a good laugh.
Yeah.
And it was just like, so the next spotting of the next thing that George R. R. Martin said was at this Comic-Con, and he said that the book was 4 months away.
Oh my gosh.
And then it was like 6 months later, he says that it's 6 months away. And then 4 months later, he says it's at least 3 years away. And then at some point, George R. R. Martin promised that he would stop working on anything that was not Winds of Winter.
Yeah, I remember that. That was huge.
Yeah, he was like, I am not going to work on anything else. No shows, no sequels, prequels, nothing. I'm only going to dedicate myself to this. And then it was like 4 months later, he announces that he's writing a new television show spin-off series. And it's just like, oh my God. Like, it's so brutal watching this man pretend to write this book. It's really, really... I get that he's got so much pressure on him, but also... I also think that there is a contract that you make as an author when you promise a series to readers. Definitely. And they, like, read your books. You've promised to finish it, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. I know a lot of people are like, he doesn't owe people anything, but it's like, well, he said he was going to give us a series, so a little bit he does. Like,
I think he does. Like, I don't think you can start a whole thing without finishing the whole thing.
But also, isn't it supposed to be 7 or 8 books? Like, even if he writes another book, it's not even over.
This next book isn't even the last book. Oh my God.
Not going to end well.
Crazy. Anyways. I'm glad that you're enjoying this. And actually, this is a little bit topical because House of the Dragon is coming out.
That's the other thing.
This weekend. The first episode of the second season. I'm really excited to watch it because Connor and I watched it last year or 2 years ago when it came out, and we really enjoyed it. So I'm excited for the next season.
Heck yeah.
I just watched an interview with Emma Darcy. They are so cool. Wow, that's the coolest person I've ever seen. That's awesome. Oh, boy. All right, we are now going to do a little visit to the mailroom. The mailroom. The hecticness of the stamps, the other postal items, envelopes. Wonderful. This is where we look at comments from you guys from all over the place. And Raylene, how about you start us off? What did you find this week?
Sure. Okay, so Claire says, I only got through 2 mashed potatoes this month, but I did buy the Yorkshire tea. LOL. #priorities.
Listen, that's a win.
Yeah.
A win is a win. A win is a win.
It is crazy how many people are still talking about the biscuit tea and the toast and jam tea. Like, it's an ongoing discussion.
You know what's in this mug?
Biscuit.
Toast and jam.
Oh, how are you feeling about toast and jam these days? Has it grown on you more? Yeah.
It's solidified for me. It's not as good as a biscuit tea. I still stand by that opinion, but I really like it. Like, it's a close second now. It grew on me. I think that I was furious for a long time that it's not what it says it is. Right. I will never say that this tastes like toast and jam. It does not taste like toast nor jam, but it is delicious tea. So
well, that's good. I don't think I would want tea that tasted like toast. But anyway, that's just me. This next comment, this is actually kind of a shout out to our most recent live show with our patrons, wherein I told everyone about my great invention and everyone laughed at me. So my great invention was that, Kyle and I invented this together. It started when I said, what if you made a float out of tea instead of pop? And Kyle was like, interesting idea. Let's try it. And then he was like, I don't know if this is going to work. We might have to turn it into a milkshake. And I was like, okay. And that is what ended up happening. So anyways, we made tea milkshakes. It's just tea and ice cream, and it's delicious with a chai. So everyone laughed at me because that sounds crazy. And it is a little crazy. But Dominique over here comments as follows. Sorry I missed it, but watching back the live stream Sunday while gardening. Tea and ice cream sounds amazing. If anyone missed it in Discord, I make tea, sweeten it, let it cool, pour over ice, and add milk. With the biscuit tea, it tastes like bubble tea base, and with the toast and jam, it tastes like a slight strawberry bubble tea. So that's a cool invention right there.
So people made tea shakes out of our favorite tea, the biscuit tea. Wow.
Yeah, so it's like an iced... You know, you could get like an iced chai or an iced London fog.
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy. Because also, like, I know I've had lots of tea flavored ice cream before.
Yeah, and it's delicious. And I did make it with chai the other day. and it tasted exactly like Starbucks. Like, it tasted exactly like an iced chai from Starbucks, and I just made it with some chai tea and ice cream. So anyways, I just wanted to show that I do have some support over there, and I highly recommend
So
that people...
do you use like a classic vanilla, or are you doing a French vanilla ice cream? What kind of ice cream
It was
are
just
you
like
using?
plain vanilla. It's just like this big bucket of Chapman's that Kyle likes to get. It's very plain. If you did it with like a vanilla bean, it would be even better. It'd be even better. It's just basic
I don't think
ice cream.
Chapman's exists outside of Canada. Just for context,
sad.
that's just funny to me. You said Chapman's, I'm like,
People are like,
and I
"What
can
is
imagine
that?"
everyone who's like, Chapman, who's Chap?
Right? Well, the last two comments I pulled are about your mini truck, because obviously you did a big update recently. So Holly says, I recently went on a cruise around the Mediterranean and noticed in Sorrento, Italy, there was mini trucks everywhere. So if you were ever to relocate with the mini book truck, you know where to go. So I thought that was cute.
Yeah, that's awesome. They have a really cool style of mini truck in Italy, and I have definitely been inspired by some of the builds I've seen that come out of Italy. Like, there's some really cool stuff there.
That's awesome. And the last comment is from Janie, who says, Bissett Books is also very reminiscent of Bissett Bookshop in lights, and I love it.
Yes.
So, because your name is in Brenna Thumler's book. Very cool.
Yeah. So the fact that I feel like she had a premonition.
Yeah.
She knew it was coming. She knew that the bookshop was coming. I owe it all to Brenna, as always. I pulled some comments from our YouTube channel. So this first one comes from Allison. I love this idea. Worst case scenario, if no one buys some of your books, just make a books I thought people would buy sale section.
That's funny.
And like, this is so exactly the energy I have for my bookshelves.
Yes.
I feel like Allison is like exactly on my wavelength, because that's the kind of shelves that I'm trying to do, like these fun, irreverent, silly shelves. I love that idea.
That's
and
great.
I might end up stealing that if I do have a bunch of books that don't sell. Ali says, does your truck have any children's or middle grade books? I just imagine being a kid and buying a book from a beautiful, kitschy little truck being the most magical memory, especially when the lady selling the book stamps it with her cute birdhouse stamp. Love this comment. And yes, I have ordered a good selection of children's books. I do think that I will need to order more children's books, but I have a starter pack, because I really did imagine this. I was like, if I was a kid and I saw a miniature truck that sold books, that would be one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. Like, that would be a core memory.
Definitely.
A lady in her book truck. So I'm with you, Allie, and yes, I have bought some children's books. I even bought some that Raylene recommended. Olivier says, OMG, I finished my Maritimes trip itinerary yesterday, and it just so happens that I arrive in Halifax on June 23rd. I will definitely come buy a book, ... or 5.
There's going to be a lot of cool books. I helped Ariel pick some of the books, so just put it out there. The selection is going to be tight.
I cannot explain how much anxiety and excitement this comment gave me, Raylene, because it made it seem so real.
They're coming.
Like, people are coming. They're on
If you
their
bring
way.
books, the people will come.
Jenny What's Bookin' says, the logo is perhaps the cutest thing I've ever seen. I just wanted to thank Jenny and all the other people who said such nice things last week, because I did feel anxiety about sharing the logo, because while I worked on it for a really long time and I loved it, I was like, wow, who knows what the internet's going to do and say, but everyone was really friendly, so thank you. And then the last comment here was from, I want to say, really, the last video's comments were just a mixture of two things. One was people being excited about the truck, and 2 were people being excited about your red hair.
Oh, that's cute.
I just realized I forgot to pull any of the red hair comments.
That's okay.
But there was a lot of people who really loved it. But yeah, the final comment I pulled was from Ella, who says, watching this after getting my wisdom teeth removed. Gotta replace my lost wisdom with the wisdom of literature, obviously. And Ariel and Raylene have healing powers.
Oh.
I've also eaten lots of mashed potatoes.
Oh, that's good.
And I pulled this one because I also broke my tooth this week, and so I just felt some kinship to the whole tooth situation. Raylene, I actually thought we might not be able to record this episode today because I got my tooth fixed this morning and they had to freeze my lip, which I didn't for some reason see coming. And because, like I mentioned, my teeth were broken at the front, I've had a lot of work done on the front of my teeth. And so they often do have to put needles right under my nose. It's the most incredibly painful spot. Every dentist is like, this is a painful spot. You're going to feel, and I'm like, I know. It's so painful. But this dentist, love her. She put so much freezing. I have never felt that frozen in my life. Like, I was like amazed at how I couldn't feel anything. For a while, hours. Yeah. And I was like, I can barely talk. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to record the podcast. Thankfully, it has like worn off. It's sore, but yeah, it wore off so I can speak. Thank God. Whew. This was a big episode. Lots to share, lots to talk about. I want to do a final plug for our mashed potato pins. If you participated in Mashed Potato May and you want to get yourself a little pin to celebrate the occasion, or if you just want a cute little pin to support the pod, or if you just want to check out some of our other merch, head to booksunboundpodcast.com where our merch is available. We're now going to go record our Patreon mini podcast. Which one are we doing this week, Raylene?
The Movie Tub.
Movie Tub! I saw Civil War in theaters, so I'll be talking about that. This will be a good one. So if you want to check out our Patreon, it's patreon.com/booksunboundpodcast. Thank you so much to everyone for watching this video, and we will talk this podcast, I record videos for a living, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.